Okay. Hello, everyone. Oh no, I just realized. First slide already. First mistake. Who finds the mistake? How is everyone? How was your Easter holiday? I also took a little bit of a break. So one nice Easter holiday weekend. Yeah, and thanks to Felix, it's lecture 3 already. Actually, time is passing, and yeah. So we started with lecture 0, which is always the intro lecture. There were some people attending the Ludum Dare Pixel Prophecy. How was it? Anyone else attended Ludum Dare? Ludum Dare? I never know. Does anyone know? The topic was really good. Rokiyomi attended as well. Can you post the links to your games? Did you already upload them? Would love to see them. So Ludum Dare, I still don't know. For those who don't know, this is actually a really, really cool game jam happening, which is happening online. So you get the topic online, and then you basically have one weekend to play the games. Can I click on the link? Do you mind if I quickly show your games? So this is, yeah, okay. Hope you don't mind, it's already here. So this is from Stefan Reichenauer, Rokuyomi, there you go. And so this is how such a game done in one weekend looks like. Really, really cool. So how did you feel with the topic? It was, what was the name of the topic? What was the topic again? You have to protect the portal well from incoming enemy waves. Yes. So everyone go and play this game. Keep it alive. Yes. And let's quickly look at the Pixel Prophecy one as well. Oh, did you? It's already a lot of... Oh, Pixel Prophecy, your link did not work. Oh, nope, didn't make it better. There you go. Can you still participate? Yes, you can still make a 4-hour game. Yeah, that's cool. Rampage by Phil Strahl. So play those games from our community. Really, really cool. I will take some time and play them after the lecture. Okay, so everyone, those events are usually really, really lovely, really cool events, or you can practice a little bit, fool a little bit around, and just try new game dev ideas. So the goal of every game jam is just to try out things. So try out new topics, try out new engines eventually, or game design technique. It's just about trial. So welcome to lecture 3. So first mistake on first slide. So again, for everyone who is joining here for the first time, so usually like once a week, I stream now my lectures, which are usually happening at TU Graz University of Technology, which is a little bit more advanced game development lecture for selected topics. So we talk about all different sorts of things. Again, it's selected topics. So this time we're going to continue speaking about different AI concepts in games. And if you're interested in this course, or in general you want to participate, even though you're not an official student, feel free. So this is the website, and there is a sub website called GDD2, so Game Design Development 2. I'm not very creative with course names. And so who is a student in the chat? Just give me a small sign or something like that. Who is a student from TU Graz? Yes. Well, that's a lot. It's so nice to see. So the streams are happening Mondays at 6:30. So we'll start always with a theoretical online lecture with a little bit of interaction also with the chat or with Discord. And afterwards we always have hopefully always a guest talk, a guest speaker. So this time we have Philipp Seifried, who is a really interesting figure in the Austrian game development scene and has published a really cool game. And I'm super excited that he will join us as a guest speaker for some discussions and for some advices today. So he's very known in the scene. And we have the weekly game discussions. So we pick every week. We're gonna pick a topic from a list of game recommendations. This one. And we will pick one game and then we talk about it. So this is usually a list. It's a list which is open. So everyone can edit, everyone can add to it. So this is supposed list to be of games which are free to play for you or have at least a free demo so that we can talk about the games without the need of buying. And it's a lot of really known games too, like Minesweeper, Dwarf Fortress, QWOP, we've talked about this a lot, and about the game, what was the homework for last time, and which was Line Rider. So who in the chat played Line Rider? Yes, very good, very good. Let's talk a little bit about Line Rider. How did you like it? What was a good element? What was fun? What did you not like so much? Did you create a level yourself? I got sent one level. I'm gonna show this level to you. The added features from what you remember from earlier versions, what did they add? Okay. So Line Rider is a game which you can play online as well. Drawing with a mouse is your specialty? No, mine neither. So I was really bad in playing, and yeah, no, we're not. Maybe very soon. Very nice try to play it again. So basically you draw your lines and then you... That's it. Okay, very good. Yes, I did not fail this time. Okay, and you can save your tracks. So if anyone created a really cool track, feel free to share it here. You can make videos, and I got some tracks sent. Yes. Okay. This was a track by username is work in progress. Are you online? Do you have any comments to your track? The track was called A Question. Will there be Game Dev Days 2020? Oh no, it is dying in the zero. Oh, that's terrible. Okay, that's a nice way to frame a question. Will there be Game Dev Days 2020? Yeah, how long did it take you to create that track? It's amazing. So for those who do not know GameDevDays.com, that's pretty amazing. Game Dev Days is the annual event we're running in Graz. It's the Game Developers Conference at TU Graz every year. It's pretty awesome. And obviously, so it's supposed to be in September. Sorry, it's supposed to be in September, but obviously we are facing a little bit of issues because of the situation of the corona situation. So let me rephrase that. I am very, very sure that there will be Game Dev Days, but we do not know yet in what format. I hope I can answer your question a little bit in that way. I don't want to add any spoilers here, but there will be always Game Dev Days, but how we're going to have that Game Dev Days might differ from year to year. Okay, so what we do need is a new homework, but I'm really impressed by the effort. So if anyone else has a cool track to share, still feel free to do so. And also, if you want to tweet about anything and share stuff on Twitter, TU Game Dev is the Twitter hashtag. Sorry, I'm reading and writing at the same time. It's not good. At least if it's delayed a few weeks, we can have the wine tour when it's sunny. So the wine tour is always one of the most important aspects of the Game Developers Days, because we obviously are very interested in having some sort of social event, and we will have a good year, absolutely, and we will make sure that the Austrian Game Developer community can meet somehow. Good. So Line Rider, I liked it a little bit. It's a very hard game to play. Here are the proper credits. I think there have been several forms of it. This is the one we just played. It's a genre sports game. I'm not entirely sure about that one. I don't know where you would put it. But this was Line Rider. So the next homework is one which I picked. Again, you can vote for games for the next homework yourself on the website, in the Google Sheet, if you just add stars to your favorite game to the left. And the next one, I thought, is something which you just need to know. It's a really, really important game from my point of view. And I'm just wondering, who already recognized this game? Who already played that game? Yes. It's Dwarf Fortress. Absolutely right. Who played that game already? If you have already played it, it's still part of the homework, though. Play it again. We need to talk about this next time. Felix played it. Ran up, failed terribly. But it is fantastic. It is fantastic. So this is not a horrible homework. This is special homework. Let's put it that way. Also, Dwarf Fortress was developed by two brothers, also from California. California seems to be a good place to develop indie games, but it was a super small team, and it's really one of those games that you have to play those games, and they really created an entire universe with such a small team, and also from computer science perspective, it's super interesting. But I want to talk about this more in detail at the next time. Pixel Prophecy, are you gonna play this? It's good. It's just good. So Dwarf Fortress. It's a classic. It's out there pretty long already. And they announced very, very recently, because it's free to play, right? And but they still want by now some sort of a business model behind that, and because by now they just were supported by Patreons and donations, which at some point is not really sufficient, so they will publish it on Steam again. Okay, and there's a GDC talk to check it out after the lecture. Is it about Dwarf Fortress. I don't dare to look. Okay. And thank you for everyone who already submitted assignment 1. So assignment 1 was submitting your cool photogrammetry models, either on Sketchfab or as a model directly to us. If you haven't, I think most of you already did. But if you haven't, please don't forget to submit it by today. And the new assignment 2, the individual homework, is also announced today, which is... sorry, I don't have a slide for that. Let me go to the website. Okay. Would have been cool if past Joey would have thought of slides. However. Okay. So if you go to the website and then you go to courses, TDD2 2020, and then you have a proper page for assignment 2, super fancy. And the assignment is a summary of a postmortem. So everyone who took part in TDD1 already sort of know this a similar homework. Your task is to watch a video of a postmortem. A postmortem talk is always a talk which talks about a game in retrospect. So everything which went wrong and everything which went really right. And here's a list. So this is a list of our talks which I picked with a proper link. And if you want to write about one of those talks, it's basically just summary and then adding your own coins to it. So you would add your Discord name here. And so it's basically first come, first serve. So you just add your Discord name here, and then you can write about your favorite game, like Deus Ex, Mansion, NBA Jam, Sid Meier's Civilizations, and so on. It's usually there's a really cool classic postmortems. So those are the ones of games which have been developed, which are eventually a little bit older, but they're still, yes, I see people already putting names there. They might be a little bit older, so it's called a classic postmortem, because maybe 30 years after the release of the game, someone decided to make a postmortem. And it's a really good way to learn about the game. So I'm closing this tab now before it's getting too crazy. Okay, so pick your favorite one. Be fast. Again, first comes first serve. And then also summarize a little bit your most important takeaways, but also expand your paper with a section describing the most important takeaways for your own game development project or projects. So this means that it doesn't need to be necessarily the project you're working on at the moment. It can be also just in general, what are takeaways for game development projects. You can again find a template which you can use. It's a talk summary template, and just reorganize it in a way you want to use it. Okay, any question to that? I already saw a question about the demo you're supposed to make. I will give you more information on that on Discord, because we will extend the deadline a little bit, because I think because of the entire situation, everything took a little bit longer. So I hope it is fine for everyone if we're gonna extend the deadline for the first demo submission. If you agree, just give me a little bit of a plus sign or anything, some feedback in the chat. Otherwise, we can also keep the original deadline, but I suppose everyone is a little bit happy about additional deadlines right now. Many plus. Good. Okay, and I will send you details to that. Of course, if you want to submit earlier, feel free. Good. Any question to assignment 2? Oh, the Deus Ex part 1 and 2 supposed to be taken together. No, I think both are 1 hour long. So I think it shouldn't be more than 1 hour talk you should summarizing. So you don't need to take them together. Just if it's really a short talk. Okay, good. So, lecture. Today we're going to continue to talk about why AI is shaping our games. It's the second part. And just as a reminder, there's a lot of resources to this topic. And this is mainly these links or resources are pretty much the inspiration and the proper links where I took this content from or was inspired by it. So one really cool conference, which is the Computational Intelligence and Games Conference, which is now also the conference on games. The Foundation of Games, Digital Games, FDG Conference, the Artificial Intelligence and Interactive Digital Entertainment Conference, and also a really cool book, which is called Game AI Book. So if you want to read more about any of those topics, this is about research in games and AI. Really, really cool resources and scientific publications, but always with a cool reference to the industry. So we talked about different ways how we can work with AI in the game development industry. So we started off with playing games, which is mainly about building AI which is able to play the games or play against a human, or eventually just play the game themselves. So in order, for instance, to test the game. Today we talk a little bit more about contributing content. This section will be very short because contributing content, for instance, procedural content generation, is usually an entire lecture by itself. This lecture is part of GDD1. Maybe I will edit as selected topics in one of the future classes if there's interest in that. But procedural content generation is a huge part, so we will only touch it today. And then we talk about AI to understand players. This is actually also one of the main research areas I'm in. And then also AI to design games is a game design feature, which is something which is super interesting, but not many people are thinking or talking about that. Just as a recap, to play games, this is what we talked about last lecture. This started really, really early, and playing games with AI was always a very interesting aspect of the entire industry. And it started really early, for instance, when IBM for the first time beat the chess master, and now it's StarCraft and it's Dota, which are played against by AI, by deep learning algorithms, and yeah, it's becoming really interesting. We're living in a really, really interesting time, and playing games and building AI to play games is a really fun field. So many of the SDKs are open, and you can just fool around with them, and you can try to build better machines, better algorithms to take part in competitions, for instance, to make a really cool AI to beat the next Dota match, whatever. Okay. But we talked about this a lot the last time. Contributing content. Again, here it is about to create with AI or AI-related systems content for the game. This can be all sorts of content. So most of the time we talk about procedural content generation, because if you think about the traditional game development task, creating content and assets, it's a huge task. It's a huge amount of work of the entire project. So if you can take yeah, if you can build algorithm which makes this a little bit easier for you, you're taking also away a lot of costs and time. So a very simple example is, for instance, all the algorithms which are building trees. So trees, if you build a huge environment, you don't want to create every single tree by yourself or have an artist create every single tree from scratch. It takes too much time, it's very expensive. So there are tons of algorithms out there which build trees for you automatically. Unity itself already comes with a standard tree building algorithm, so this is probably one of the simplest examples. And again, this is not so much about this artistic freedom, because the artistic freedom is often more about the beauty of the castle, which you can find in the middle of the forest, and not about the pretty tree which you can find and which is always, not the same. Procedural content generation can be used for all different sort of things. So who knows the game on the top left? And what do you think did they build with PCG or PCG related? Waiting for the chat. So this is pretty much the entire world generation. Houses, the entire world. So what is the name of the game? You can already prepare the list of the different games. Looking at the chat now. So in the first game, top left, pretty much everything is procedurally generated. This is one of the most interesting and most famous examples how they are just creating entire worlds with blocks. And they are using the purling noise for that. But again, this is a little bit of a recap of GDD1. There are really fantastic papers and more readings about that. But Minecraft is a really, really good game for that. What is the game here in the middle? And what do you think did they create with, what did they create procedurally or especially famous for? Yeah, this is pretty much Diablo 3, yes. Diablo was known for creating dungeons procedurally. So every dungeon sort of looks very similar, but again, there are the arrangement of the dungeons is always a little bit it's similar, but it's again procedurally generated, so it's always different. So every time you would re-enter a dungeon, it looks different, and also where they place the enemies and where they place the treasures and so on. Most of the levels, not all of them. That's right, Felix. Then we have Elite. Elite is one of the oldest examples for procedural generation, because back then also memory was very limited. So actually procedural content generation has a very important impact on the design of games, because back then you were so limited in memory, but you still wanted to create entire worlds. So using PCG was one of the only ways to provide a almost endless, infinite universe to a user to fly through in Elite with almost no memory. So that's a really, really good advantage of PCG. Then we have Spore. This was already said. So what do you think was procedurally generated in Spore? The animations. Yes, it was the animation. So it was the creatures, that's true. But most interestingly, it was the animations. So there's also really fantastic talk, the world and the creatures too. But animations was one of the most fascinating things, because in Spore you could create your own figure, you can create your own creature by putting together a head and like the shape of the body, how many legs and how many arms this creature have. And obviously, if you just add a random number of legs and some body shape, it's very hard to make the animation and proper animation for every possible setup. So they created the animations in procedural way. Very, very interesting talk, very interesting technique, really something to look into deeper. And then Borderlands. Borderlands is a weapon system. In Borderlands, that's very interesting to look at because, again, you can build together your own weapons somehow. And yeah, there's very interesting technical papers about that too. Here's the example of Diablo. So A, B, C, D do refer to the different room setups. So A always looks a little bit different, but the way how they're connected, like again, A to C, A to D, A to B, A to C, A to D versus a main corridor and so on, can be always very random. So this is how this works. So you will always find rooms which look similar, but where you find them and what is next to this room and also the interior and the enemies within this room can always be a little bit different. So you can basically generate content for everything, the environments, art, texture, music. Monkey Island is one of my favorite examples for generative music. This is such a pretty way how they fade the music from one room to another. So first they're removing some of the instruments, then they eventually making it a little bit slower. Then if you enter a room, they would add other more fitting instruments, make it eventually even a little bit faster and so on. So a very, very interesting topic about music too. And the story, Ken Levine, who made BioShock, he gave a really inspiring talk about narratives in a Lego-based, block-based system, which is about creating. It goes into the direction about procedural generated stories. This is actually a really, really cool topic also to think about how to create entire stories which can be replayed and which are always a little bit different. Yeah. And very, very cool. So absolutely something which you can think about including in your games. Oh yeah. A little bit about the benefits, a little bit of the drawbacks. So usually we would work on this together in the lecture. This is a little bit harder now, so just let me read it to you. So obviously procedural content generation is relatively cheap because you don't need a ton of artists to create an entire forest. You just need one artist to create maybe one tree, and then one programmer to make an algorithm to create a forest where every tree looks a little bit different. You can create lots of content very fast. You can eventually rearrange the content based on the current emotions of the player, for instance. So just think about the scenario, you're playing the game and then you notice the mood of the player for some reason is getting a little bit sad, and then you automatically change the style of the music to a little bit more upbeat music or whatever. It's obviously saving a lot of memories. You can build huge works, and it is said that you can replay it. You can replay the content. So now let's talk a little bit about the downside. Felix already mentioned that the quality of the content is not guaranteed. So this means there are a lot of outliers. So I think in GDD1 I showed a video of fails, what can go wrong, I think especially in the new Elite. Was it Elite? If anyone happy to Google that, please post it to the chat. There's a fantastic video of things which can go wrong. Also fun, but again, sometimes frustrating if it's too many corner cases. Again, we call them corner cases. It was No Man's Sky. Sorry, it was not Elite. Elite was it was No Man's Sky. I think Arc Dive. Then the artistic aspect. Again, game development is absolutely some form of art. And especially if you create really interesting, inspiring environments, this is an art form. So if you take away too much of that, are you taking away, for instance, also the artistic aspect? Question mark? Exclamation mark, whatever. Then you're losing the control you're losing sort of the control over the entire content. So all of a sudden, you're not the main game designers. Eventually, also the algorithm you're creating is co-designer of your game. So you're giving a little bit away of the game design control from your side. Again, think a little bit of what we also discussed in the last lecture about this illusion of freedom, that you as a game designer decide where the player should go next. If you create everything or a lot of content procedurally or with help of an AI, you're giving away a little bit of this designer control. The procedural content generation also depends a lot on the content. So what you really want to do, what you want to, what is your main point, for instance. So if your game is really a game about music, maybe it's so much nicer to have a really good artist make all the music for you from scratch. Then it's also about the calculations. Obviously, it saves memory, but some of the calculations can be very heavy. And if all the calculations are run on the client side, maybe it's getting too heavy for the specific client. Think of a mobile game, for instance. And then we again have this question about replayability. Is it really, really, really replayable 1,000 of times if you just rearrange a little bit the setup of the room? This is more a very philosophical question, maybe, but still a very, very interesting one. There are tons of methods which you can use. Just leaving this slide here. Oh, this is. I need to talk about this right now because I see Cellular Automata. Someone very important for the things we're doing has unfortunately died last week. And I just want to very, very, very shortly take this moment and talk about his work a little bit. Anyone already sort of knows where I'm taking this quick interruption? Conway. Very, very sad news, but John Conway died, unfortunately. I think last week it was. But again, I just want to very, very briefly share his work. And because I think this is also very inspiring sometimes for things you want to do, you want to work on. And he got really famous for his Game of Life. So John Horton Conway died of complications because of COVID. He was a really, really famous, really, really well-known, really, really cool previous Princeton professor, still Professor Emeritus. Mathematician and known for the Game of Life, which is basically a rule-based system which you can really, really reform very quickly in Unity. So I was working on that last weekend. So if you want to play a little bit with these concepts. It's just about creating one grid, and on that grid you can apply those different rules on the different cells. So for instance, one rule is any live cell with fewer than 2 live neighbors would die, and this is unpopulation. Any live cell with more than 3 neighbors dies because of overpopulation, and any live cell with 2 or 3 neighbors would live to the next generation. So it's very simple rules, and what's happening is over the time different pattern would appear. So it's really, really lovely system. It can be implemented very fast. There are also tons of C# or Unity source codes already out there. So yeah, just something I wanted to put out there that you can look at. Good. Just okay. And let's talk about the next part. Again, if you eventually want to hear more about PCG, we can make it also as a selected topic, but an overview you already got at GDD 1. This is now one field I'm very excited about, because this is basically one of my major research fields. So for those of you who do not know that, so I'm a professor and researcher at the Graz University of Technology. So I'm not only lecturing, but I'm also doing a lot of research. And this involves, on the one hand, virtual reality research, but on the other hand, player and game analysis with machine learning methods, which data analysis, statistical analysis, and social network analysis. So this is one of my main areas. And we could have eventually even a selected topic mainly around that topic, but I want to just include it here as one of the applications of AI or AI-related algorithm. So we want to get a better understanding of the player based on his or her behavior. So this specific branch of this research is also called behavioral profiling, because we want, again, to find patterns in the behavior to improve the game. Because, again, we want to learn about the player behavior to improve all the future games, or eventually the game he or she is currently playing. So this should be a recap for pretty much everyone. I hope, so who in the chat has already seen this one? With the name super easy to pronounce, the Hungarian Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Hopefully I got it right. And this is one of the main concepts we're working with when we design games. So we want to constantly keep a level of flow. So this means that the game should adapt over time based on the skill of the player, or the challenge you give the gamer as a game designer should adapt should be aligned with the current skills. No, it was not correct. I'm not trying it again. Okay, so basically this means if the player still is not with a lot of, doesn't have a lot of skills in your game yet. So for instance, you're starting the game and you still have just your small little stick and you try to fight a dragon. The challenge is too high and you would drop out most likely because you're just too overwhelmed by the game. So the skills of the player would grow and grow over the time, and so should also the challenges of your game, that you have this flow experience until you're a super skilled player and you can even beat the highest, biggest challenges. So basically, what you're trying to achieve to keep a player in some sort of a flow state. Again, this is a theory which is often like highly discussed, as we can also see in the chat right now. But it's a good way how to think of a game design, that you give a player challenges according to his or her current skills. And if you feel like you're losing players, you can find out, if the player is too bored right now because of specific things, eventually the challenges you're giving are too low, not interesting enough. There's also a principle which we can apply here, which is called adaptive gameplay. So some games you can adapt based on the player behavior in runtime. This is also a concept which is highly discussed because, again, this takes a little bit away of this artistic freedom. But again, it's from computer science perspective, it's just so interesting to make a game which is just always in the perfect difficult level for a player. As Tom from Belgium just mentioned, for Dark Souls, we are probably always here. So this is Dark Souls, always. But that's also fine. So something which I always mention here, which I find a little bit frustrating. So I started Zelda or Ocarina of Time on the original one on the Nintendo 64 back then. And what happened was when I was not able to finish the next puzzle, I had to talk to someone, to some of my friends, how they were able to beat the puzzle, or eventually look for solutions in the internet, which was really not that populated back then. But this was the way how I was trying to solve challenges in games when I wasn't able to beat them just within the game. And now I feel like when I replay Zelda Ocarina of Time, every time, if I cannot get the puzzle within, let's say, 3 minutes, there's already some tink from somewhere. Hey, can I help you maybe? And then there's this fairy which already tries to give you some hints. And then instead of giving you hints in the end, you can crawl in some sort of a rock thing, and you get videos of how to solve the puzzle. So I think the principle of challenges in games have changed quite a lot in the recent years. Also because there's so many games out there now. So if a game is just too challenging, some of the players will always just stop playing in the very beginning, which is a little bit unfortunate, I think. And and would just play any of the other thousands games released every week on Steam. By the way, what I forgot here, which I really wanted to mention too, about procedural content generation. One example which I want to give, just that you also have a little bit of a difference in mind. It's a little bit the Skyrim. A big portion of Skyrim was procedurally generated, whereas The Witcher, for instance, was mainly handcrafted. And I think within the game you can also feel that. So sorry for the interruption, but just had this. Remember this moment. Okay, sorry. Back to the topic. And then there's another principle, which we discuss a lot every time, which is, again, a very simple representation of how our players interact with the game. I just want to remind you, so everyone is playing every game in a different way. And this is exactly what I'm interested in when I'm doing this sort of research to understand the player behavior, because every one of us plays in a different way and likes different things within games. If I play GTA, for instance, I want to find all the monster stunts. I want to find all I don't know, 50 monster stunts and want to finish 50 out of 50. Other people really don't care. They don't even care about finishing the game story. They're just there for some sort of action scenes. Other people are only there for the story and so on. So everyone likes other elements of the game. And what we can do here is we can play some sort of a player DNA, player fingerprint. So based on the behavior of every player within a game. So for instance, so this is a fictional example. So this is not based on a real game. But if you think of an online game, and you have different modes in this online game. So for instance, you have a story mode, you have a campaign, you have an arena, you have an online and a local multiplayer. And depending on how often a player would interact with each of these modes, you can build eventually different, you can eventually create different types of players for every game. So this in reality does not really exist. So this is pretty much different for every single game based on the various game options. So for instance, the story enjoyer, so those are fictional names too. So I would run a clustering algorithm. I would define some features, run a clustering algorithm on that, and then see how many clusters. In that case, I have 5 clusters are given, and would rename these clusters by myself. What would be the most interesting one or the most fitting one? So this is one who likes, for instance, all the different modes. This one really loves the stories. And within a game, it doesn't need to be equally distributed. So this also means, for instance, there can be a lot of people who really like the story enjoyers, and just a small cluster or a small bunch of people who enjoys the party player. And one example, which was by Habstedt, Zimmermann, Nagapan, and so on, it was a research paper presented at Kai Play 2015, was with Forza. So I think a lot of you probably have played Forza, and they looked, so this was a collaboration with Microsoft, they looked at 120 million races from 1.2 million players. Anyone in the chat has played Forza? And what they found, they also used clustering techniques to identify different behaviors and looked at what modes they would like to play. So there's a typical career mode, there's a rival mode, there's a free-to-play mode, a free-play mode, there's a multiplayer, hopper, private, split screen. This is very unsatisfying. I am one of those split screen drivers usually, and it's very frustrating if you see that split screen is really not a thing anymore. Anyone in the chat still likes split screen games? And based on the different behaviors, actually, you can find those different types. This one is obviously this kind of person, this kind of player who really only comes there for the career. On the other hand, there are people who only like multiplayer. So this person, for instance, someone in this group, doesn't care about the story at all or the career at all, and is really interested for the multiplayer experiences. Or private multiplayer, so probably playing always with the same friends. So that's actually pretty interesting. And this is one example from my own research about Just Cause 2. Just Cause 2 is very similar to GTA, but since we are having a fantastic guest speaker in a minute with us, I will keep this content and better pictures of this content for the next lecture.